Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can start, sir.
Okay, you start with the front page.
1 minute, sir. Uh-huh. So, good afternoon to all participants, and good morning to Professor Bengt-Åke Lundvall, sir. Professor Bengt-Åke Lundvall is Professor of Economics, Aalborg University, Denmark, and is a expert of the innovation system and also the founder of the Globalix. And it is a second chance to the all participants that we are going to listen the lecture of respected Professor Bengt-Åke Lundvall. In previously, I had invited to him in the book discussion session, which has been edited by Professor K.J. Joseph and Professor Lakhvinder Singh sir. So, sir will deliver your topic on the what is the meaning of the open sciences in the current era, implications for the developing countries, STI policies. So I hope that our participants will learn a lot of skills from this session. So I will not take more time. Just I would like to welcome to Professor Bengt-Åke Lundvall on behalf of me and on behalf of the all participants. So, sir, we are so enthusiastic to listen you. So now floor is your. So you can start your presentation. So over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. It's honor and pleasure to meet with all of you, and I'm going to speak about open science. And the way you experience that is that if you want to make an academic career, you need to publish, and you need to expose your articles to referee process, and you need to try to do it in such a way that you get into the most prestigious journals. And that might be quite annoying. Even old people like myself and KJ and others, we're exposed to having deliver our text to somebody who will tell us good enough or not good enough. It's one important dimension of open science. But let's move on to the next slide. Next slide, please.
Preeti madam.
Hello.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. This is just my presentation, and you already know I'm a professor emeritus at Aalborg University, and I worked on national innovation systems, learning economy, and the last couple of years I worked on the geopolitics of the digital revolution. Together with Cecilia Recap, who is now part of a team in London with Mariana Mazzucato. That's my background. Then let's move on to the next slide. Open is normally regarded as good, and I'm going to argue that open science, it's not completely fair, but it's difficult to think about a system which is much better. But even so, I think we need to ask open to whom and at what price. Who has the means to harvest on the commons? I don't know if you know the concept of the commons. It's where it's a part of land or area which is not privately owned. Everybody have access to it, but choose to harvest what is on the commons than other. And this is one of the issues we are going to discuss. And also, what could be the implications for science and technology? This kind of phenomenon for developing countries. Technology is actually at the same time. There was an interesting article in Research Policy showing that the European Research Council, most of the research outcomes was transformed into innovation, not in Europe, but in United States. And I combine that with the work I've done with Cecilia Rickup, on where we show that US tech giants, they harvest AI knowledge and data worldwide without sharing intellectual rents with their foreign partners. And foreign partners can be foreign universities. They co-author a lot of papers with scholars from other countries, but it's transformed into private property through intellectual property rights. So I combine these things, and my conclusion is that for Europe, if Europe invests in AI research, and it's still a regime of open science, the main result would be to support the US tech giants, because they are world lead users of research in artificial intelligence. They are very attractive partners. I mean, if you are a scholar, you want to be working with in a context where you are at the very, very edge and front of research. And this is what characterizes the tech giants. The volume of their research is much bigger in artificial intelligence than any national government program. And then I finally relate this to something which World Bank economist has written a book. Maloney is one of the authors, which is called The Innovation Paradox, and where he shows that in spite of the fact that research is a very scarce resource, investment in science gives a much lower rate of return in low-income countries than in higher-income countries. And I would say, as a hypothesis, that this aim has the same root cause, the fact that you do not have domestic lead users. So this is why it's not transformed necessarily into innovation and economic development. This is my starting point for this interest in open science. And at the same time, of course, we see these new tendencies towards geopolitics, techno-nationalism, where countries try to get ahead in terms of competitiveness and strength through protecting strategic technologies. So let's move to the next slide. So I'm going to say a little about what is open science. I'm going to say something about the advantages. And actually, I think I will argue that the alternatives to open science are worse. Even if it's not perfect system, it's even worse if you go to a different kind of system. I will say a few words on open access, and then I go into techno-nationalism and open science, and I focus on tech giants as world lead users of research outcomes. And then I come to the innovation paradox. We have something called the European paradox, but we also have the more general one for developing countries. And I say this might have something to do with sowing without having a harvester. And finally, I say a few words on SDI policy. Let's take the next one. Next, please. The concept of open science was introduced by American sociologist Robert Merton in 1942. He defined it as a principle of sharing scientific knowledge and research findings with the scientific community and the public. He was very much in favor of it, and he argues that open science contributes to the advancement of knowledge by allowing researchers to build upon each other's work and verify results. But he also, I would like to mention that, talked about something he called the Matthews syndrome. Matthews is somebody appearing in the Bible. And Matthews' text says that for those who already have should be given even more, and for those who have not should be taken. It sounds terrible in a kind of Christian context, but it means that those who get ahead, those who get widely cited, those who have written many articles, they will have much easier access to publication. They will get more attention, etc. So you have this, Merton said that there could be downside to open science in this respect. I don't know if you know Paul David. He's an excellent economic historian, and he also contributed important things to innovation studies. He characterizes open science as a distinct institutional regime that emphasizes the free and timely disclosure of research findings and data. And he puts this in contrast to proprietary or closed research systems where if like industrial R&D, where you really try to protect research results in order to exploit them economically. And he says that this system is driven by specific norms, rapid dissemination of knowledge, cooperation, and cumulative progress. So you can build upon each other's work. And you have peer validation and replication. What determines what is good research is not political, it's not economic, it's about what your colleagues think about it. Hey, yes. And then it's non-exclusivity, which means that in principle, everybody has access to data, everybody have to scientific data, everybody have access to new research findings. These are the principles of open science. Okay, next. And this system has clear advantages, especially if you think of what would be the alternative. Open science promotes knowledge accumulation and diffusion, even at the world scale. Peer evaluation is a way to make sure that you have a kind of quality control. And it's a way to certify what is reliable knowledge. You cannot get away with anything when you expose your research to a peer review. And then I would like to add to this that open science and especially international research collaboration has a major role to play in the current era, where the planetary environmental crisis requires rapid development and diffusion of scientific insights which can contribute to the development of green technologies. It would be a kind of tragedy if geopolitical conflicts made it impossible to share knowledge which is necessary to tackle global challenges. And open sciences stands in contrast, as Paul David mentioned, to secrecy and to privatized knowledge, where intellectual property rights create artificial scarcity and transform knowledge to a commodity. But not all research is taking place in this regime. If you look at the algorithm used in artificial intelligence, they are typically protected through secrecy, not even by intellectual property rights. They are kept secret. So in that sense, you can say that open science is, in that sense, progressive. And you can even see anti-capitalist concept. But let's move on to the next. There are limitations of openness. And of course, one of the most obvious one is in military research. I don't know how many of you heard about the Alamo project, which developed the nuclear bomb, the atomic bomb in a place called Alamo in United States. They were strongly under observation from the US Secret Service, and people who later were accused of sharing scientific knowledge in this area, named Rosenberg, they were actually got a death sentence. They were killed because they shared this knowledge with Soviet Union. So not all research, and today we see more and more research is defined as dual use, which means that it can be used both by military and civil users. And it means we have seen that even in my country, that the intelligence service is beginning to map Danish universities' international research collaboration and intervene to say, you must not work with Chinese scholars in this area because it might be used for some military purpose. And this is, of course, very much the case for artificial intelligence, which is a key element also in modern weapon technology. The other limitation is what Paul David referred to, research for the market. And I'm going to come back to how big pharma, the biggest pharmaceutical companies in the world, and the digital tech giants, they actually organize corporate innovation systems. They organize a lot of the research in-house, but they also organize collaboration with external scholars and institutes, and they, in that sense, they guide the direction of their research, and they also restrict the openness in this sense. And then we have the Bayh-Dole Act in the US. I don't know if you know that, but the idea was to make it possible for universities to take out intellectual property rights and to make money also on research financed by the public sector. And of course, this system in itself restricts somewhat the openness of the research, because if a scholar wants to end up taking out a patent, he will act much more strategically, carefully, not sharing his results until he's sure he can get it protected by intellectual property rights. So, and you can also see that all kind of national SDI policy has normally as aim to give domestic enterprises privileged access to the research financed by the state at domestic universities. But I think one very important and what is often neglected is that access to open science is open mainly, or I say only, but it is mainly to users with sufficient absorptive capacity. And this should be combined with the high-tech companies which have enormous research in-house and which make them lead users in their specific fields. like artificial intelligence and pharma. Next. I would say a few words on open access. When I prepared this, I realized that, and we might discuss this afterwards, but I realized that India has the government, according to what I could see, had made a kind of deal with the main science publishers in the world to give open access to public universities. Perhaps you can tell me more about that. But the old model was that university libraries, they bought actually physical journals and they bought access from publishers to give their affiliated scholars free access. This was very expensive because these science, the big journals are owned by editors with a big market share. But now this has changed. With open access, it means that the main mechanism, it's not only that, but the main mechanism is now that scholars should pay the publisher to get their articles published with open access. And you can say that in principle, open access is a good thing because it means that you can spread knowledge widely around the world, etc. But it should be realized that they give some economic advantage to institutions and scholars in the rich countries. And that this has to do also with the institutional setup of scientific publishing. Over 70% of editorial board members in top-ranked journals are based in North America and Western Europe. The US, UK, Germany, and a few other countries, they dominate both the production and evaluation of academic knowledge. And global South scholars are underrepresented not only in authorship, but more critically in gatekeeping roles like peer review and editorship. It's interesting to note that since 2017, perhaps before that, but most obvious since 2017, China has tried to change its position in these respects. They have, we're going to see that in the next slide, I think. So, techno-nationalism has become more and more important. And I think the very beginning was when China, it was when it became clear that China was becoming a threat to the technological leadership of the United States, and especially so in digital technologies. We could see how the US retaliated. They boycotted some firms like Huawei, and they introduced embargoes, especially on the most advanced chips. Please mute. There's somebody unmuted somewhere. Okay. I have to move to get the current. Hur låg är vägen då? I'm back in a second. So, okay. When it, yeah. So I think this is where it all started, and of course we see how this has also had some impact on open science, in the sense that there's more focus on restricting research cooperation with China in the US and in Western Europe. I don't know how the situation is in India. For instance, in December 24, the US made major revision of its science technology collaboration with China. It was narrowed to non-basic, non-defense research, and it excluded critical areas like artificial intelligence and quantum computers. And this is significant because actually the US tech giants had quite advanced and wide collaboration in these areas with scholars and institutions in China. We show that in our book on the digital race. And also in the US, we could see a shift. They call it to de-risk, to make it less risky to partner with China. And again, especially in areas like biotech, artificial intelligence, and quantum computing, but still allowing cooperation in areas like climate, health, and energy. This weakening of international and global cooperation is significant because now China stands for more than 26% of world R&D, while US slightly bigger, 29%, and EU only 15%, and India, I think, according to what I could see on the net, 2.6%. So if you start to reduce global cooperation in strategic technologies, it really gives a new meaning to the concept open science. Next. What has happened is that there's something called hyperscalers. These are tech giants. Sometimes they're called hyperscalers. And this is because the combination of new digital technologies and new forms of organization in form of platforms, they give enormous advantages to big-scale economies with wide access and use of the internet. And here I think of US, but also China. In the US, one reason for which laid the ground for hyperscalers like Amazon, Meta, Microsoft, Apple, and Google was a new legal frameworks. First, there was a weakening of antitrust, and second, there was a widening and deepening of intellectual property rights. And this is a prerequisite for the enormous concentration into what is called hyperscalers. In the book I wrote with Cecilia Rickup, we demonstrate that the tech giants, they use giant resources on R&D, especially focused on AI, on artificial intelligence. They establish long-term collaboration with key institutions, also research institutions and scholars, and hereby they build what we call their own corporate innovation system. They co-publish a lot of their work. Many articles is with one author who is internal, working, employed by the tech giant, and some others are outside. But they never share rents, almost never share rents on the basis of this scientific. So you can say that tech giants are very good at harvesting research financed by the public sector. Everybody have access to open science, open source, but we could see that they have privileged access. They are the first and best users. And the next step might be that they also take over and create monopoly situation in the open access, which is actually built on the principles of platform organization. Next. Yeah, how to close the digital gap. And here I have been discussing this here in Europe, because as I said, we just got a report showing that we are seriously behind China and US. And if what I've seen so far, typically what one would do in Europe is to subsidize AI research, to promote skill formation in AI, and promote digital entrepreneurship. But so far, the US tech giants have harvested most of the benefits from such policy efforts. And here I have argued that Europe would need to learn from China, where the massive investment in knowledge was combined with building what has been called the great digital firewall. And I refer to the book I have mentioned several times. Next, please. So, and another reason for going into this is that we have an old discussion in Europe, which is called the European paradox. And it was the EU Commission in a Green Paper 95. It wrote that Europe has some of the best academic research institutions in the world, but fails to convert this excellence into innovation and market success. And there followed a lot of debate on this, and it's not as obvious as it was formulated. Perhaps the strengths in research was exaggerated, and perhaps the focus on a specific type of innovation based on intellectual property rights were exercised. But anyhow, it's interesting that it was mentioned already 1995. Now, recently, I saw a paper in Research Policy. It's from 2024. It's by Italian scholars, and it's about who benefits in terms of innovation and economic outcomes from research financed by the European Research Council, which is actually financing research on the base of taxpayers' money. And they asked this question: does the Research Council break free from the EU paradox, referring back to the old discussion in 95. What they show there is that it looks as if when it comes to private companies, it's US companies which benefit more from European research than European companies. And now it's interesting because this paradox concept appears in another context in the book by Cirera and Maloney. They are both World Bank economists. And they demonstrate that the rate of return on R&D investments, in spite of the fact that one should expect that the scarcity of research would give a high rate of return, it was actually lower in low-income countries. And what they do is, interestingly, they argue that to explain this paradox, it is necessary to apply a broadly defined innovation system perspective. And I give the reference. I assume that you all will give access to my slides afterwards, so you can look into the different sources that I mentioned. So we take next slide. You might know that when I started my research in the 1980s, I focused a lot on user-producer interaction. And it was on the basis of that I, together with Chris Freeman, developed the concept National Innovation System. And I actually think that if we apply a user-producer perspective on the interaction between producers and users of scientific knowledge, it actually dissolves the paradoxes. There are no more paradoxes. We can explain why we see the pattern which is there. And I would add the idea of Eric von Hippel, who also worked a lot with the role of users in innovation processes and introduced the concept lead user. So the point is, if you invest in R&D in areas with weak domestic users of scientific knowledge and strong foreign ones, it will have limited impact. And in the case of Europe, I would say it's not enough to invest in scientific knowledge, to build education and research. It should focus on building strong domestic users in the strategic technologies. And to create strong domestic users will typically require modifying the openness of the economy. And here we see the classical example with China's Great Firewall. Interesting, by the way, that China has accepted Western principles of open science. I worked in China, and if possible, China is even more tough, more hard in requiring scientific publication in lead journals than what you meet in the West or other countries. So they have combined this with trying to strengthen its institutional position in academic publishing. I mentioned this earlier. And they, in 2017, the government introduced something they call double first class initiative. It aims to cultivate world-class universities and research institutions that produce high-impact research, and they give special support to publish in the top-tier journals. So China has accepted the rules of the game of open science. At the same time, we see that China tries to establish a stronger position in in the infrastructure and institutional setup of international publishing. CS Publishing announced strategic partnership with major international publishers like Springer, Nature, Elsevier, and they have also launched a new open access. They have also launched a series of new open access journals and expanded its digital platforms to improve accessibility. So they have this kind of accepting the principles of open science, but trying to reinforce its position in institutional organizational terms. And this leads me to my last slide. And this should be something about policy implication. It's very brief. The first point, I think, the alternative. We should think about what would be the alternative to open science. It could be a system where politicians decide what is good science. It could also be an alternative where the market decides what is open science, where the people with most money decide what is good science. So I think even if there are weaknesses and limitations in the current system, I see basically, I think it's correct to defend the principles of open science, open access, and it is especially important also when it comes to respond to global challenges such as global warming. But at the same time, I think there should be much stronger focus on building enterprises' absorptive capacity in strategic technologies, especially in green technologies and digital technologies. I think it's important to try to establish a capacity inside the private sector and the public sector as users of science. I This has been the point in innovation systems always. Don't forget about the demand side. Don't forget about the user side. If you only or mainly focus on the supply side, on supporting science and basic science without thinking about the user side, you will not get much development effect in your own country. And the other thing, the third thing is, I think, good idea to think about if you can do what China has done, which is to strengthen the institutional capacity in the field of scientific publishing. Make sure that more colleagues are getting into the editorial boards of leading journals. Make sure that ownership or collaboration contracts are established with which give good terms of conditions with scientific publishers. And of course, I think it's also necessary to be aware of the growing threat that US tech giants pose also in relation to scientific publishing. I think there are signs that they are going to take over some of the monopoly positions that some of the great scientific publishers are doing, using their technological lead in digital technologies and their use of platform organization in this direction. And this means that you should combine such national strategies with international collaboration to try to reform and change the global institutional settings to make sure that open science, open source, etc., becomes also more fair than it is now. Thank you very much. That was my lecture.
Thank you, Professor Bengt-Åke Lundvall. So, just the session is open. So, if any participants have any questions regarding the research, publication, and particularly this session, so you have discussed with Professor Lundwall sir. So session is open. So participants, please ask your doubt and queries to sir.
Any questions or comments? You are very welcome.
Yes. Any participants have any question? My voice is coming. Participants, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Anyone have any questions?
I want to ask you.
Yes, yes.
Uh, I want to ask you. I saw on the internet information that the Chinese, no, sorry, the Indian government
Hmm.
has made a general deal on getting open access for all public universities. Are you aware of that?
One
Is
nation,
that correct?
one under the one nation, one subscriptions.
Hmm.
Yeah. Indian government has passed the resolution, the one nation, one subscriptions for the public institutions. But I think the all institutions have not journals access. There are the several participants from the different universities. How many participants universities have open access?
Have you? I have another question as well. Uh, what about what kind of experience do you have with paying to get published? Is this something you experience? And I know one problem with this that authors pay to be published is that there are coming a new kind of journals which are actually just trying to make a lot of money, and they tend to perhaps become less critical to what they publish. They might have a kind of pro forma referee process without really doing anything. Do you have experience with that?
So first of all, I would like to request all participants, please open your video and please unmute yourself. So first things.
Somebody should unmute, perhaps.
Yes. Anybody have published your paper in the Scopus or the Web of Science and any renowned publication? How many participants have published? Anyone have not published their paper? You have published your paper in peer reviewed in the some like 2,000 रुपए वाले जर्नल में 3,000 वाले में किसी में पब्लिश किया है किसी ने कि नहीं किया है? You have published your paper? Okay, so Miti Tayang, in which paper you have published?
Okay. I get many responses. Are you guys shy? Are
Yes,
you
sir. So,
too modest to
just
take to say something? That's
uh,
no good. You have to be brave and say something.
yeah. So, just sir, I have
Don't be
published.
shy.
Just I have published one paper in the African Journal of Science, Technology and Innovation. The Professor Mamu Mosi is the editor of this journal. And the second is I have published one paper in the Journal of the Human Values. It is under the SAGE publication Scopus Index. Recently, I have published two research papers in this journal, and other I have published three papers in the SAGE publication in this year.
I think somebody raised the hand.
Yes, please. Sub, and Sakshi, you have published your paper, Sakshi madam, in anywhere.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Sakshi has also published the Miti, can you unmute yourself? Yes, Preeti ma'am.
It is someone. Please.
Yes, sir. I have also communicated a paper in Journal of Cross Cultural Psychology, which is a sales publication.
Uh-huh. Well, but you guys,
Miti,
I talked for almost an hour, and do you have any comment and questions? Was it very
Hello? Hello? Am I
yeah?
audible, sir?
yes, yes.
Okay. So first of all, thank you for your time, and thank you for sharing your knowledge and experience with us. We, as a uh, learner, as a new scholars, we are here to learn how to write academic articles. So now, I would like to ask you one question, sir. So, recently, one of my paper got accepted, which was in an article which was there in the Web of Science. But then,
Very good.
after getting the acceptance this year only, I got to know that that paper was removed from the Web of Science and the Scopus Index. So now, under these circumstances, should I go ahead with the publications? What do you think, sir?
Um, so you got your paper accepted?
It's in the process. Uh,
Uh-huh.
like like I have got the reviewer comment. First reviewer comment, I have made the modifications. Then I got the second reviewer comment, and also I
Mhm.
did the I have done the modification and have sent it back. But I am yet to receive the final decisions.
Okay. I'm not sure I can give you concrete advice in this situation. I mean, I can say a few words generally that uh, uh, I mean you have to be extremely obedient when you interact with referees. Even I have been in many situations where I think that I get unfair comments, or I get if I have two referees, sometimes they come with completely opposite uh, uh, opposite comments that I should do this, and the other one says I should do the opposite. So all this is happening, and what you have to do is to maneuver the best you can, trying to defend as much as possible your basic ideas, but also listen very carefully and try to adapt to the referees. And sometimes you also probably have to see that publication is a kind of gradual process. You have to start perhaps with rather modest journals, perhaps not the most famous, and then try to go further up as you learn the game. I'm interested in also to ask. I mean, the audience here. You are 79 people. I can see online 79, and uh, uh, I get the impression you are mainly rather young scholars. Huh? You are mainly PhD students or
Some are assistant
something
professors.
like.
some are assistant professors.
Is that correct?
Majorities of the
Yes,
participants are research scholars, but some are the assistant professors. They are teaching in the colleges and the universities.
And another thing is, of course, that sometimes it's a good strategy to if you have a chance to co-author with a more senior scholar some of your work, it can be quite helpful. Or you can co-author with somebody who has kind of other capabilities, complementary capabilities. Also, I think that you need to develop some specialization in the tools of doing research, because there is a lot of focus on being good at doing advanced use of tools. Sometimes there's more focus on that than on the real research results, if you are in and so on. And this is not good always. Sometimes I think there's too much focus on being a very smart statistician or econometrician or using some other method. But it's the game is there are certain rules of the game, and as a young scholar, I didn't do that myself. I was very lucky and so on, because I published my first scientific paper when I was like 84. I was more than 40 years old. And today I would never make an academic career, because you need to publish several papers before you're